Hi, my name is Amy Kuruvilla. I'm an Anglo-Indian Australian who is passionate about freedom, justice, and shifting mindsets. This podcast is all about giving women a chance to share their stories and the stories of others who've experienced gender-based violence, particularly in India. Come join me as I help to give these women their voices back, with the hope that they can then enter into the journey of recognizing their true value and self-worth. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Ruby Road podcast. Thank you for joining us wherever you're joining from in the world. I'm so thrilled to have you listening in today to this podcast. I've got a really special guest today. He is a friend of mine who I've known for a few years. Before I introduce him, I just want to say, while I was thinking about this podcast, I didn't really think too much about interviewing a man on this topic. But in talking to this friend a few weeks ago, it became evident that I really need to have him on the show because there's so many things he was saying that were very powerful and I felt would really impact you as listeners. So welcome to the show, Alvin.
Thank you, Amy. It is the International Women's Day today, so happy Women's Day,
yes.
firstly. And I'm honored to actually be on the podcast literally on that day. For all those who are listening, I was telling my coworkers today, I work with a bunch of women in a health clinic, and I was telling them I'm actually going to be on a podcast with my friend today, and they're like, "What are you going to talk about?" And I said, I used to be in a very abusive relationship. And they were like, yeah, well, that's very cliche. And I'm like, well, I used to be the abuser. And they were like, oh, snap. Wow. Like, that would be interesting to hear. So hang on. We'll definitely get into some gory, juicy details of all of that stuff.
Thanks for the teaser. That's good. So for those listening, we will be getting into that. I think it'd be great if we could start from you as a little boy growing up in India. So what I forgot to mention was Alvin is Indian. He was born in India and he's currently living in America. He's married to a beautiful American woman and they've got 3 gorgeous children. But I guess I'd love to start to understand, right, how you ended up becoming an abuser in a relationship. Maybe talk about your childhood, what it was like for you growing up as a boy in India.
Yeah, definitely. I had the most beautiful childhood. All of the stuff that you read or you watch in the movies about Kerala, the southern part, or I should say the most beautiful part of it. And, like that was literally my childhood. The beautiful, serene surroundings, amazing school, playing out with all the friends. It was just wonderful, or at least I thought it was. But years later, when I actually came here to the United States, I was able to step back and have a different perspective and look at what actually molded me to be the person that I am today and realized a lot of what was going on around me was really, really toxic. And that's one of the reasons why I have a huge heart for helping people change their whole mindset or to see what conditions them in that social setting and in your family, whether it's in your school, whether it's in your church, whatever religion you are of, everything around you that molds you plays a huge role in molding your character or making who you are today. So when I looked at it that way, I was pretty disappointed. I thought it was great. I definitely cherish a lot of great memories, but it had a lot to play in the role of making me who I am. And that's how I ended up being that abuser, because in my childhood, all that I've seen around me was men yelling at women, men taking the control over women. It was a lot of anger. So naturally, even though I didn't intentionally want that to be who I am, I thought that's the way to respond to a woman. Like you've got to respond in anger. You have to have the control over any conversation or anything that you do because you are the man. So It is the wrong concept of alpha male. That was what was going on around me. Literally no respect. There was always men yelling at women because they expect them to do things their way. Anger is basically, if I'm angry at you, that's probably because you are not doing things my way. So that's what I saw growing up, is that when the man says something and if the woman disagrees, then there is a lot of yelling and screaming, and putting her in her place is what they call it. So that kind of made me who I was. And I had to go the whole 9 yards of changing and becoming a real man.
Mm. So what would you say, you talked about that, you witnessed that as a young child, I guess dominance. So the male had to be the one that was dominant. And what were your main influences and influences growing up as a boy in India?
It's the men that are around you in your family. And if you grew up not with a lot of men around, it's mostly in India, the movies, right? Like the number one influence is the movies. And it was for me too, because now you're watching somebody, you're idolizing that person, you want to be like that person. And Indian culture is like that, where when the man says something, the woman has to obey. It's not a good idea not to obey the man. So I think my influences come from men in my life.
So like the male figures, so whether it be your family members or also, like you said, movies, watching men in movies. And did you, just on that, you're watching men in movies, what did you see as a young boy that affected your mindset?
The most fascinating thing, or what I thought was fascinating, was whether it's an action movie or whether it's a love story or just simply life in itself, it is the man, the fake alpha male, having that control, having that respect out of fear for, oh, this is the man and he needs to be revered and he needs to be feared. And when he says something, that's the final say. Whatever type of setting you take, the man had the control. And in growing up, there's this really nasty saying in India. It's when you're children, they call you the tail, or they call you change, like the change of money change, right? So they'll say the tail should remain the tail. You don't try to be the head. Or the change doesn't need to get the spotlight. That's constantly being said to us when we were kids. So it was a constant struggle or a battle to become that man who's like the top tier, the head of the family, who actually gets all the respect. So he's the head. You don't want to be the tail. You want to grow up and you want to be that man who gets respect without doing anything. And I've seen families where some of my friends' dads who would come home drunk, they would beat everybody in the family, the mom, the kids, everybody. But at the end of the day, that person who is a drunkard who comes home and trashes everybody is still feared and given that respect because he's the man.
Yeah, wow. So I guess like in terms of that, you're witnessing this as a young boy, you're being exposed to all of that, and that would have contributed to your mindset. How do you feel social conditioning occurs in a society like India?
I like to look at it this way. When a lot is done today to actually change that violence against women or the view against women, and to an extent, it's not going in the right way either. I love what you're doing, teaching those kids all of that stuff. It's so important. Whereas another huge group focuses mostly on sex education. Like if you give good sex education, then they expect that there's going to be some change. And I don't think that's the right approach. I'm not saying completely avoid the whole sex education part. Keep it as it is, but give equal focus on teaching men to step up. I think it's very natural as a man to have sex drive, but don't take it out on other people. So men not knowing how to deal with this drive, that's where the problem is. All of a sudden, they just don't know how to have healthy relationship with women. So the men that I've seen or I grew up around was constantly looking to get into everybody's pants. And they think that that's just a normal thing. I grew up feeling that same way. And at one point I was like, if I'm looking at myself outside of my body, I will not respect myself because of how my mindset is towards women. So the whole objectifying women, it comes from that place of not knowing what do you do with this damn drive that you have. Like, how do you control it or how do you process it? I've been using the word alpha male a lot, and I just want to touch base on that. I get this question a lot because I go to the gym, I work out, I'm 35, I look a lot better than a lot of other people of my age, physique wise, and I have a full beard. So I look intimidating. So people naturally tend to think that a person that's tattooed, jacked with the beard is an alpha male. No. I don't agree 1% to that. Sorry for saying this on this show, but if you are an intimidating asshole, that's not alpha male. That doesn't give you the right to call yourself a real man. Alpha male is actually, it's a mentality. It's a mindset. Alpha male, I think, is the protector who knows what kindness is, who knows where you need to show empathy. Being tough and being an alpha male has nothing to do with each other. Completely different.
I want to talk about yourself in terms of your early adulthood. We're just going to paint the picture up until you were in that abusive relationship where you were the abuser. How would you say that you viewed women? What was your mindset towards women up until the point where you had that transformation?
So, like I said, I grew up not seeing men respect women, right? Everything that the man says, the woman does. No questioning. So naturally, this is where my mindset is at. When I'm in a relationship, I get to control the woman and she will wear what I tell her to wear. She will cover herself when I tell her to cover herself. You're not someone for the world to see. You're mine. And if you're mine, then you will listen to me. That's when you're in a relationship, right? When you're not in a relationship, let's say I like a girl and I'm pursuing this girl. Let's actually talk about a true story here. So there was this one girl when I was in high school, beautiful looking girl, dark, curly black hair, beautiful eyes. And she was a little taller than me. And so I went to an all boys school, and a couple blocks down is an all girls school. So every time the school's done, all of us are walking towards the bus stops to catch a bus to go home. So we'll wait for these girls to come. And when they pass by, we obviously didn't have the balls to go and tell them like, hey, my name is Alvin. And we would just tease them from the back and say stuff, take small stones and throw at them and all stupid stuff that we saw growing up in the movies. So I like this girl and I would just tease her all the time. And one day I just gathered all the strength and I went and told her, I said, hey, I actually really like you and I would love to marry you. And she looked at me and she said, first grow taller and then come back and talk to me. Us men cannot take rejection.
Yeah, true.
So next thing is, okay, you're not going to be mine. I'm not going to have that. So because I can't have it, I'm actually going to destroy you.
Wow.
So my next step is to make her feel the worst. So anytime she will walk by, I would make fun of her with my friends. When it's raining, we would like go jump in the puddle next to her. And so she gets all like drenched. We would do really bad things to her. As kids, bad. Right now, it's gone to another level of
Yeah.
acid on people's faces. But at our time, we were scared to do anything outside of that, but we were still harassing them to a point where they would turn and say, okay, fine, I'll date you or whatever.
Wow.
Like that's the objective. That's the goal, because you have to have what you want because you're the man. And at the end of it all, I think she said, if I see you one more time coming and harassing me again, I'm going to call the cops on you. And I'll make sure that your ass gets arrested. So that was the end of it. Smart girl.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, that was our view of women.
This is interesting that it's basically the same sort of behavior and mindset, but it's not as dangerous because, like you said, you stayed within what maybe as a little boy would do. And it's becoming worse. Now we see it worse, but it just goes to show that there's something underneath that rejection that's occurring that's causing you to act out. Let's talk about when you became an adult. So obviously this mindset was with you, and then you progressed into adulthood, and you eventually became an abuser in a relationship. I know that you're really open, which I really want to honor that. So thank you for wanting to share. Yeah, how did that happen? What happened exactly?
Yeah, I'll be 100% open about it because I honestly want people who are listening, especially if you are a man or a young adult or boy listening to this, understand that there are mistakes that you can never come out of. I've struggled with extreme case of anxiety, and going through the whole therapy sessions with my therapist, we found out that the root of a lot of these things is because of what I've done back then in my past. So I'll actually tell you story by story, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in Bangalore, it's a great city in India, going to do college. I'm on my own. I have my own little apartment. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to live the life of my own, but I've never had the freedom to actually be in a relationship where I got to control the narrative. Because being home and being in relationship with girls, this is all done in secret. If your parents got to know that you're dating, that's about it. Like it's the cane on your butt. So all of a sudden I have this freedom of like being in love and just doing whatever. And I met this girl, really amazing person. We started dating. Eventually we started to get to know each other. We've already made so many commitments to each other. You've gotten physical with each other. So now you're in a place where you can't really, quite get out of this thing because you've made those commitments. When we started to get to know each other a lot more, we became really toxic towards each other because we just didn't know how to behave or how to respect. And it's mostly me. I just did not know how to control my anger towards a lot of things. For example, she's an amazing singer, so she had a lot of fans. So there was this one guy, he's a great singer too, and he looked way better than me, so I was jealous of him. I would tell her, when you see this guy, you can shake his hand, but you're not going to hug him. She walked straight up to him and he came arms wide open, he grabbed her, hugged her. And he's like, oh, who is this? And she said, oh, this is my friend. And I freaked out. I threw my phone on the ground and I said, I'm your effing friend? I'm your boyfriend. Why are you afraid to say that? And I caused such a big scene over there that this guy.
So wait, that's in front of everyone, Alvin? That was in front of.
Yeah, in the whole car.
Oh, wow.
The guy tucked his tail in between his legs and ran. He was afraid of me. Another guy, he knew that I was dating her and he was trying to tell her, I actually like you and all that. We were in the college canteen and this guy was about to sit. I pulled his chair. He fell down. And as he's down, I looked at him and I said, that's my girl. Don't you dare trouble her again. So I wanted to be this hero that everybody was afraid of, and nobody would even look at my girl. And if she looks at somebody, I'll be like, are you cheating on me? Why are you looking at it? I wanted to control everything that she did. Like if the slit of her top is too much, I'll literally go get a new top and make her wear the new top that doesn't have that slit. So I controlled literally everything. I changed the person who she is to what I want to be.
Hmm.
It felt like she was suffocating in the relationship, but I was satisfied because I'm getting what I want. I'm getting the control. There's only so much that you can control a person. Once that threshold's broken, it's out of your hands. I think that's what happened in our relationship, where she was done with the crap that I was putting her through. And she opened up about that to another guy, and they went out for coffee, and I took it as she's sleeping with that guy. So I waited outside her house, just a few blocks away from her house, knowing that she's coming back home. So when she came home, I grabbed her phone and I said, I know where you were. I found out that you were with this guy. She put her hand on my head and she said, I love you. I love only you. I wasn't doing anything. At that point, I lost it because I'm thinking you were just with another guy and now you have the audacity to promise on my life that I'm the only guy you've been with. I moved her hand and I slapped her. And this is on the road. She's a little darker complexion than me, but my fingerprint was on her face. You could see that very clearly. I dragged her by the hand and I walked into her house and I threw her in front of her dad and I told him, your daughter is a little slut. If you don't want her ruining your name, you better control her. And don't take that phone away from her. Don't give it to her because she doesn't deserve it. And maybe even consider not sending her to college anymore because this is what she's doing over there. I said so many bad things. Her dad graciously just put his hand on my shoulder and said, Alvin, can we not talk about this to anybody else? Can we just keep this between us? I have 2 daughters, and I'm thinking, if anybody came to my house and talked about my daughters, that person will not leave in one piece.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what my daughters did, but you don't talk about my daughters like that. But that man, he let me go that day. And after that, what happened was just tragic. I completely lost my sense. I did a lot of things. Anytime we get into an argument, my reaction was to hit her. I would hit her. One time I hit her so hard that she fell unconscious. And I had to call her mom and be like, she slipped and fell and she's not waking up. And that really scared me because I thought, that's it, she's gone. It was more like she fell into a coma and she didn't wake up for hours. But like, that's what I would do when I say something and if she didn't agree to it, or if she disagreed to what I'm saying. Physical abuse was my way to go because I needed that importance. I needed her to respect me or just say, yes, you're right. I've done stuff like, I would ask her, so whose mom do you like more, my mom or your mom? And she would be like, obviously my mom. And I'm like, no, you have to like my mom more because I love you and I'm your man. So say it to me that you like my mom more. And make her cry and cry and cry, nights and nights of harassment, abuse. I just don't understand how in that moment I thought this was love or relationship. To me, it was just meeting my needs, feeling important in the way I thought I had to achieve that feeling. Looking back at all of that, I know that the problem stemmed from my insecurities. I did not know how to be a real man. I did not know how to be the protector, the provider, the one who would guard my woman's heart. I'm not saying every woman needs a man to take care of her, but for the ones that have the man, the duty of the man is to take care of the woman, but not by controlling and manipulating her to meet your needs, to feed your insecurities. And that's where I didn't have a system or a support, or I didn't have anybody to tell me, you need to understand that it's your insecurity. So it took years. Just a couple of years back is when I got to look deeper into those areas of my life and realize what kind of a person I was. I never respected women at all. I considered women weak. I considered women as someone who constantly needed men until a breakthrough happened in my life where my perspective just completely changed. And I think that was the beginning for me into that journey of understanding what actually a woman holds. I clearly think that there shouldn't be any men treating women the way I treated them.
Can I ask you a question, just going back to the situation you were in? Did you feel like your violence escalated? So, obviously it started with like the verbal control and what she wore. And then obviously it escalated to slapping her. And it sounds like it became more regular. And at what point did violence sort of stop in that relationship? I'm just curious to know how that actually ended, the relationship itself.
The violence never ended in one sense, because to me, it wasn't violence. To me, it was just a part of a relationship. This is how it should be. If you don't listen to me, then it's my responsibility to put you in your place. So to me, I never looked at it like a bad thing. Obviously, I would feel bad after doing it, but then it was just like a regular thing. I just got so used to it that I got over it feeling guilty about it. When I dragged her home and that incident happened, we broke up completely and she was still trying to pursue me. I would call her names and I would just yell at her, cuss at her. I just didn't want to do anything with her. At that point, I started looking for other relationships. And I started dating 3 girls at the same time. And all 3 girls had no idea that this is the kind of person I am. This is me taking revenge on her. And what for? Just all these ideas that I made up in my head, which is not even real. So I'm living in this imaginary world of my own conclusions and my own feelings, not knowing how to navigate myself, not knowing how to channel my anger and my issues. This all stems from the childhood, right? Of when the parents say, you're the tail, so be the tail. Don't try to be the head. Now I'm trying to be the head by trying to feel important, but I just did not know the right way to feel important. So I'm doing everything that I've seen in the movies when they have 2 girlfriends. It's so funny. It's cool. And, that influence molded my personality without me knowing that this is what it's doing. Because I didn't have a proper channel to learn, that's not what a real man looks like.
Obviously, you're not that way anymore. Curious to know, what was that turning point for you?
I think the turning point was when I actually took the religious route to pursue religion and Christian ministry. And obviously, when you are in Christian ministry, you don't abuse women. That's not a good route for you. So I came to the realization that that's not okay, And I started seeing this happen to one of my siblings. I had so much disrespect for that person. And I was like, that's not okay. Because all I saw in that person was me. What I did with that girl when we were dating. And I could see from a third person's perspective of how nasty and how inhuman it is to raise your hand against a woman and treat her like that. That was, I think, the beginning point of me realizing that it's not okay to do that. My whole perspective change about women, again, it's a journey. So one is when I was in school, the same school that we went, we had this class where they teach the importance of women in Christian ministry and the creation story, right? Adam and Eve, a lot of people know about this story, but I don't quite I don't have the same perspective anymore. It's an interesting story. The story goes that Eve was in the garden and the devil approached Eve and made her eat the fruit, which was forbidden. So he was getting her in trouble by making her do something that she was told not to do. The interesting fact is the devil didn't go to the man.
Yes.
He was the head, but he didn't go to the man. He went to the woman because he knew that she is far more powerful. For a man to be the head, you need a powerful woman. So if you destroy the woman, then the head has no place in that structure. So the devil's plan or agenda was to destroy the woman. And I was like, holy shit. Like, why did I not ever look at it that way? It blew my mind. I was looking at it the wrong way this whole time. I'm trying to control and be the protector, thinking she needs me because she's weak, wherein she doesn't need me. I need her. That changed my perspective a lot. And a couple of years into that same place, I remember meeting you in school. And I'm like, this is another one of these Indian girls, like, doing all of this stuff for attention. Like, which is, in my experience, that's what a lot of Indian girls did in, getting that platform. And I honestly did not know that you were a popular singer. I never knew any of your background. All I saw was you in school, in those platforms, just having that limelight. And I'm like, performance. That's all about it. Like, she's just trying to be someone that she's not. And I had to have a reality check in that moment. I was like, listen, asshole, you don't know this girl. You don't get to judge her without knowing who she is. Okay, so let's actually check yourself. And I did. And I sure enough was like, I found the answer. Why was I insecure? She got the limelight that I never got. She got the platform that I never got. She got the opportunity that I wanted, but I never got. So when she is standing in that position, I am feeling little. I am feeling insecure. And I'm feeling like I'm nothing. So I'm projecting that onto her, saying she is pretending to be something else, where it's for me who's pretending to be something else. I'm trying to be the man judging the woman there of like, oh, she's performing. And I was like, this is one of the hardest things for me and the most embarrassing things that I had to instantly, I did not wait. I instantly messaged you and I said, hey, Amy, this is where I'm at. I've been seeing you do all of these things and I've had this bad attitude towards you, thinking this is what you're doing it for. Holy cow, the way you responded to that with grace and love and understanding, it did something for me,
Wow.
And instantly, for me, like from that moment on, all I had was respect for you. I was like, this woman is freaking killer. Like, ever since then, I've seen you as like the standard that women should have. The audacity that you carry, the boldness that you carry. You don't take shit from nobody. You're not arrogant, but you're gracious and you're kind. But at the same time, you don't let people walk over you. You are the true representation of what a powerful woman should look like. And if every woman, every girl could see that and understand that and try to be like that, I think women can put freaking men in their place in this world.
Thanks, Alvin. I didn't expect that. That means a lot to me. I just want to honor that you had the humility to actually tell me. It impacted me hearing that, to be honest, when you shared with me. So thank you for that. But I did want to ask this one thing. You've transformed your mindset now, and now you're empowering towards women. What do you believe is the key or the keys to seeing this mindset shift in India, like with the violence against women, with the way they view women? What do you feel is the key or the keys to seeing this shift in India in the men?
We talked about this one story about this girl in my neighborhood who got raped.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were in college, we would just hang out in the neighborhood, and let me not be shy about it. This is how we consider it. Like we say, oh, this girl is hot. Okay, like that's the standard we view people in. This hot looking girl in the neighborhood, she would wear really scandalous clothes. Scandalous as in she was comfortable. She felt pretty. She was okay. Her parents were okay with her wearing that. We called it scandalous because we didn't get a piece of it. So coming back to that story of me harassing this girl who rejected me, when I can't have it, obviously I'm going to view it or talk about it in a negative way. So that's where the whole "this is scandalous" comes from. She would wear really modern clothes. To honestly look back, it wasn't revealing or anything. It was like some short skirts or really tight jeans. And today it's worse than that. The level of tightness has only gone up today. So comparing that to like then, we called that scandalous. I think that was too much. But looking at her, we would always pass comments when she goes by, like, oh, look at her, check her out. I'd hit that, stuff like that. One night, as she was coming back from work, a group of guys caught her and raped her. And it became an overnight sensation in the neighborhood. All of a sudden, my friends who with me, I'm guilty as I speak of commenting on this girl or harassing her in the neighborhood. These people who did that with me, all of a sudden have become activists. We need to find those men who raped her. This is not the way to treat a woman. And I'm like, I literally asked them, if you were in that alley with her at that point of time alone, I have no doubt that every one of you would have thought of doing that to her. And at that point, it's not rape. Well, it is. Without her consent, if you touch her body, it is. To me, I think that was a big eye-opener, because a woman who did not give you her consent, you have no rights to take that away from her. All I could think was, what is this girl going through right now? Because to her, it's probably the end of the road. For her to gather the strength to face public after that, or let alone even think of being with another man after that, that's crushed. That's gone. And I think that's where Indian men has to realize, we're constantly hearing these news about women being raped. Like, what is the problem with you? If you think that you have the rights to take the dignity away from another woman, you've got to understand that the mindset is toxic. That doesn't make you a man.
So what do you believe are some ways that, let's say, for example, there's a men or women listening who are in relationship with men in their life who are, let's say, violent or having this sort of mindset towards women. What would you say to them?
What you do with your sex drive shouldn't be brought on someone else. If you have this mindset of, if you cannot look at a woman and not see her through eyes of your sexual desires, then that should give you a red flag that there is something serious going on and you need to fix that. If you don't fix that, you are going to be replicating that to future generations, because you are a man, your seed will bring forth more life, and that DNA will carry on. Whether you believe it in science or not, DNA is basically the imprint of your entire life. So if I am a man who treats my wife poorly and my mother poorly, and if I'm looking at things that I shouldn't be looking at, and my kids are around me and they get to see or they find things that I shouldn't be looking at, are the people being affected by that? And if my kids are seeing what I'm doing or the kind of man that I am being, that is going to be the standard for them. You know, like my dad wasn't a violent man. He didn't do any of these things, yet I picked it up from a lot of other people around me. So we got to understand it's not just one person stepping up. It has to be men in union coming and understanding that we have to change us if we need to change the future generation. If we don't step up and if we don't be the representation of what a real man should look like, the future generation is doomed, because the consequences of that is that your daughters are going to go through that, your wife, your sisters. You just can't sit back and witness all these things without doing anything. It's definitely going to happen one day or the other.
So just to finish, I want to just end on that, the children. So we started as you as a child. I want to ask you, for parents like yourself, for those listening who are parents who have children, and let's say in particular in India, because this is where we're focusing this, parents that want to teach their children about respecting the opposite gender, what are some things that you do with your own children to ensure that they're brought up with a healthy mindset towards the opposite gender?
First and foremost, I hear this a lot. Hey, this is how I grew up. So this is why I am the way I am. No. If I decided to be the way I grew up, I would still be abusing women. I would still be harassing women. I would still be objectifying women. I still would not have the confidence to look at a woman in her eye and not see her through sexual desires. I will not be the man I am today if I chose to be, if I say this is how I grew up. It's your choice. It is purely your choice of what you want to become and who you want to become. And I obviously cannot make the choice for my kids, but I can change things around them. I can show them and teach them by walking the talk and being that example for them, because my kids don't see me disrespect women. My kids don't see me objectifying women. My kids don't hear me talk like that, act like that. Even when on TV, when we're watching, when there's like a kissing scene, my kids will be like, ew, like that's nasty. And I will be like, listen, stop. Firstly, there's nothing nasty about it. That's life. That's what happens when a man and a woman gets together, when they are in love, when they are married, when they're dating. This is natural, what happens. And it's okay to have that attraction. But here's how you do it. This is the boundary. This is the right way to do it. You don't do it without the person's consent. So I get very little. We sometimes underestimate that, they're only 5, 6, and 7. There's a lot of time for them. Trust me, if you don't start right now, it'll be too late. Like I know things that I learned when I was 5 years old. I still remember things. So we cannot underestimate the whole idea of when to start with the kid. Teach them the value of respect, the value of trust, the value of love, and show them that they are important. We make them a part of decision making. We don't tell them, your tail, you stay there. We ask them, what do you feel about this? What do you think about this? What do you like about this? It's important to talk to your kids and to show them that respect and importance and love, that they don't go looking for it the way I did. It would break my heart if my son did what I did to that girl, to another girl. It will break my heart if my girls have to go through what that girl went through because of what I did. What I would do to the boy is a whole different story. But I think as parents, as a father, my prime duty is to show my kids that it's not easy, but this is the way to live.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Alvin, for all that you've shared today. I appreciate you coming on, being vulnerable, sharing your experiences. I do believe that it has challenged and it will challenge people listening, especially men who are listening and are struggling. If you want to reach out, I can connect you through to Alvin. I'm sure he'd be okay with that.
Absolutely.
If you're struggling, especially let's just say with violence and you're struggling with other things, how to manage your sex drive, these kind of things that are such an issue in India, especially, please reach out. Don't do it this alone. Don't struggle alone. There are people who can help and walk you through this.
I want to say something really quick before we end this. It's like I said, the turning point for me was to face my embarrassment and message you in that time of, Amy, this is how I'm feeling. And yes, it was embarrassing. It was shameful for me at that point to say that. But because I faced my fears and I put my ego aside because I wanted to grow out of that is where my breakthrough was. That's what helped me grow. That's what broke that wall. And I got to meet this amazing person that you are. We wouldn't have been friends.
Yeah, true.
If I didn't do that. And in the same way, I think that being angry and showing your anger is not what makes you a man or a woman. It's all about when you are angry, how can you control that? How do you react, or how do you not react, and how do you respond is what makes you a stronger, better human being. And if you need help with that, definitely reach out. To me, it was not like an overnight thing. It was a journey, and it took me years to get to that place, but it was a conscious decision that I took that.
Amazing.
I will not, on my watch, I will not let another man treat another woman the way I did. You just have to make that decision.
Wow. All right. Well, we're going to end on that note. Thank you so much, Alvin, for your time. And thank you for all that you've shared today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you for listening to the Ruby Road podcast. We hope that you've been impacted by this episode. If you would like to find out more about the Ruby Road Project, you can visit rubyroadproject.com. You can also find us on socials at the Ruby Road Project. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it. We want to spread the awareness of this issue, and we believe that every single person can play a part in breaking the cycle of gender-based violence. That includes you. We'll see you next time.